Hello everyone and welcome to the next lesson of our Spring Security course. So this lesson, in the previous lesson we talked about the authorization framework and authorization workflows. So this lesson is in continuation of our last lesson where we are going to extend our knowledge of the authorization framework. Uh, in the previous lesson we talked briefly about the authentication manager or sorry the access decision managers and the different voters. In this lesson we are going to see how exactly they work, how you can configure and customize the access decision managers, and what are the different use cases where you might have to create your own custom decision voters, and we are also going to write a custom decision voter. All right, so let's get started on that one. Right, so this is our current configuration. All right, so if you look closely to this configuration, we have bunch of Spring expression languages with some kind of what kind of authority every URL should carries, and all sort of different things. What one thing which is really interesting in all this configuration is there is no configuration for a decision manager, access decision manager, what we were talking about, and there is no configuration about the different kind of voters. Those are used, those should be used by Spring Security. Now the Spring Security intelligent defaults, right? When I said intelligent default, that means that Spring Security automatically understand what kind of a context it is and what kind of a decision voters or access decision manager should be used for these kind of things. So let's take this example. This is pure a Spring web expression, right? Those are being used here into the configuration. So Spring Security will automatically going to use the a predefined decision manager and a web expression EL, right? We will be talking about that a lot into our next lesson, but these are the defaults which will be used by the Spring Security. Just to understand it, let's do one thing. We are going to put a debugger. Okay, so from our previous lesson we understand that abstract security interceptor is the entry point for the authorization framework. Especially this method access decision manager decide, it takes a call whether for a given URL the customer is authorized to access that URL or not. So this is a post authentication process. So even though user might be authenticated, but still they don't have the required privileges. It's the same thing if a normal employee within an organization try to access something which is only accessible to the admin. So you are authenticated as part of the organization, but the current URL is only accessible to the admins, right? So this decision manager is going to say, hey, you don't have the decision, you don't have the required privileges for those one. Okay, so let's do one thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a debugger here, and then we are going to debug a simple login scenario. So what we are going to check here is what kind of a decision manager is injected by Spring Security, and what are the different decision voters are being used by the Spring Security. Let's try to use a simple login scenario here. Okay, I'm going to do a login, and you see, so the control is on to our abstract security interceptor class. Okay, so this is our access decision manager. Okay, and you see this is an affirmative based decision. Let's see the decision voter. So there is only one decision voter used by Spring Security, and that is web expression voter. If you remember, the configuration what we were using into app security are the web expressions, right? These are nothing but spring ELs, right? Okay, now this decision voter will either say yes or no. Either it basically allow you to access to the given URL, or it say, okay, hey, you don't have the access for that URL. Okay, so we can run that application. If you want to go inside, we can check that out. So the decide method is there, right? So it's an affirmative based decision manager, and I'm not going to go into more details because we have checked that the result clearly says that one. That means you are basically good to go. You are authorized to access that URL. So now what we are going to do is we are going to customize this process, okay, before going to the next step and see how it basically changed the process. So what we are going to do now is we are going to create, or we are going to inject our own decision manager with our own set of the decision voters. All right, and this is with the Java configuration. It's really easy. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down. So what I'm going to do is, if you see, this is the access decision voter I have created, and what I'm doing is I have a list of the access decision voters. All right, and this contains three decision voters. One is the authenticated voter, which basically takes a call whether if the given thing is authenticated or not, and then it basically either say either it has a three options: it participate, say yes or no, or it abstain. The other one is a role voter, and the third one is the web expression. And then what we are going to do is we are going to basically say a unanimous based decision voter, and we are going to return that kind of access decision voter. Okay, so let me open this one. Okay, so this is the abstract decision voter, and if you remember from our last debugging thing, we had the affirmative based decision voter, right? That was injected by the Spring Security. Let's do one thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to inject this decision voter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is access decision voter, and then I'm going to use this access decision voter. Okay, so this is all you need in order to customize the access decision voter and inject the list of your preferred decision voters. All right, so what I'm going to do is now is I'm going to restart the application and see, we are going to debug again and see how that is changing our process. All right, so I'm again onto my login page. Let's do a simple login here. All right, so we have the access decision manager, and this time it's a unanimous based decision manager, right? It's not the other one. So this time the unanimous based decision manager was injected by Spring Security. If you remember, the last time what we saw was the affirmative based decision manager. Okay, the other thing which is interesting here is the decision voters, right? Right now there are three decision voters: authenticated voters, role voter, and web expression. And this is what we actually did in our method, right? You see, we have injected three. We use three decision voters, and then we use the unanimous based decision voter. All right, let's go back again to our interceptor. And now our first decision voter is the authenticated voter. All right, now if you see, the result is 0 for this one, right? And the reason is because it's going to abstain. 0 indicates abstain, that it's not participating into the voting process. Okay, why it is not participating into the voting process? Because the authenticated decision voter, right, that doesn't know how to basically process this kind of a web expression. So rather than taking a decision, it's saying, okay, I don't want to participate on this one because I don't understand it, right? Okay, the next one is our role voter. Again, role voter is going to abstain because it don't understand the web expression. All right, let's see the result. It says 0, right? So next one is our web expression voter, and this is the voter which understands the web expression, and it's going to take a call. All right, so if you see the result 1, which is access granted. All right, so you saw what is the difference between the out of the box configuration and then how easy it was for you to kind of create your own configuration and inject into the Spring Security. So as I said, right, in most of the cases, the out of the box Spring security configuration is more than sufficient for you. But there are certain use cases where you may want to create your own custom decision voter, and especially if you're working onto the bigger enterprise applications, right? One example is where if the user is locked in, or let's say if you mark the user as locked in users or maybe blacklisted user, you don't want them to access anything at the real time. So we talked about that user locking feature, right? But that might not work in all the cases, because once you are authenticated, you still have the authenticated object into your session. So the Spring Security is not going to check each and every time what is the status of that one, right? But by that time, for example, if your session timeout is for 30 minutes and within 5 or 7 minutes that user is marked as an invalid user or a locked in user. But with that kind of a things, user will still be able to access the application, right? But if we want to make it more configurable, probably that is one of the use case where you want to inject your custom decision voter, and you want to check some kind of external services or maybe database to take a call. If the user is locked, we should restrict the user to access any kind of pages within the system, right? That's one thing. There are other scenarios. For example, for any of your application, you don't want anyone with the name of anonymous to access your application, right? You can easily do that using the decision voters. And there are n sort of applications which you can, where you might need to create a custom decision voters. For this one, I'm going to create a simple decision voter. What it is going to do is, if your username contains an anonymous as part of your username, it won't allow you to it will not give you the access for those one. Okay, so let's see how to create a custom decision voters. And again, it's straightforward. There are only few things which we should be taking care of. So this is the interface which we are going to extend, and that is the access decision voter interface we are going to extend. It has only three features. As I said, access granted indicates one, if a given decision voter is abstain. Okay, that means it is not participating into the voting process because it don't understand how to process or how to take a decision for a given type of a request, right? It says 0, and -1 indicates a deny. All right, and there are few methods. The support method indicates whether the given access decision manager, voter, have the support or can it take a call. So finally, our board method, which basically takes authentication object, any additional attributes which can be passed to this, and then it basically, you can add any sort of a logic here to decide whether you are going to give a permission for a given URL or not. Okay. All right, just to save some time, I have created this custom access decision voter, and this is a very simplistic decision voter. Okay, what is happening right now is I'm saying it is basically true. So I can my decision voter can be a specific one. For example, if it contains certain attributes only, then my decision voter should execute. But I'm making it applicable for all kind of a request. Okay, and then also keeping it very simple, saying okay, get the username from the authentication object, right? You can get it from the authentication object. There is other way, right? We also pass a set of the collection attributes, right? You can also use these attributes to determine your logic. It's up to you. And then what I'm saying is, if username contains anonymous, okay, I don't think I need this one. Okay, I'm going to say contain user name and anonymous username, then access denied, otherwise just grant the access. Okay, it's as simple as that. All right, so what I'm saying all in all is that okay, If my username contains anonymous as part of the username, don't give access, just deny the access. Okay. Now let's configure our this custom decision voter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inject our custom access decision voter. It's just a bean. Okay. And we have already injected our decision manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the list of our decision voters and I'm going to inject my custom decision voter. All right. We have injected or configured our custom access decision voter and our application is started, right? Let's try to do a login. I have already created an account just to save some time. I'm clicking on sign in. Okay. So first of all, let's again review our access decision voter. Okay, it's still the unanimous based because that's what we configure in our Spring security configuration, right? So now if we look into the decision voters, we have 4 decision voters. We have authenticated, role voter, web expression, and the new one, which was the custom access decision voter, right? So 3 of them will work as is. Let's debug it. Okay, so I'm going to put a debugger here. Okay, so the first one is again our web expression authenticator voter. It will say abstain, right? It won't get into the decision process. Next one is our rule voter. Again, it will abstain because it won't get into it, don't understand it. Okay, the other one is now the web expression. It's definitely going to take part into the voting process and the decision will be access granted. You see the access granted. Okay, what we are going to do is we are going to put a debugger into our custom access decision voter. All right. Okay, so let's see what is the last one. So last one is our custom access decision voter. Okay, now if I run it, it's going to get into the our custom decision voter, right? And now I am saying if my username and anonymous username what we have configured here are same, then deny the access, otherwise just grant an access. Okay, so it says grant access is denied. All right, let's go back here. The results are there, right? If there is a result and result is -1, which is access denied. If any one say access denied, it is going to say access denied. All right, and if I run our application, go back to our login page, it says you don't have the access. All right, so that gives you an understanding. Two things. I think this lesson was target for 2 things. One is to give you a kind of a clarity on how you can configure your decision voter if you want to do that decision voter. For example, you apart from the web expression, you also want to inject some other decision voters. That's the first thing. Second thing which I want to highlight again, the flexibility of the Spring Security framework and how easy it is for you to change the behavior, inject your own decision voters, inject your own access decision manager and all sort of things. And the third thing was in many of the enterprise application, probably out of the box decision voter will not be sufficient, so you may end up creating your own custom decision voters, right? So you can inject as many as decision voter as you want, and it's really flexible, it's really easy. I gave you a simple example, right? But as I said, right, you could have done it in a different way. For example, if you want to block the user as soon as they are blacklisted or they are not authorized to access the application, so you don't have to wait for the session to expire. You can always use these kind of decision voters, get the information from your external system or from the database, and then take a call whether that user is have access or the access is denied for those one. I hope this gives you a clarity on the decision process and the voting process. In next lesson, we are going to extend it and we are going to talk about what are the different decision voters are applicable or available in the Spring Security, and what is their role, what kind of a decisions they take, right? That I'm going to cover into the next lesson. If you like my tutorials and if you like this series, please don't forget to share the video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching this tutorial.